Thank you everyone for dialing in today. Today we are running a webinar on Amazon Quick, and I've got a bit of an agenda, but we're going to do a live demo and a technical deep dive on the platform and taking a look at what AI-powered business intelligence looks like. So today I've got a guest from AWS with me. I'll be doing the introduction and the first half, and then Ivo will be doing the technical deep dive. I'm technical director at Scale Factory, and Ivo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. As you I'm a solutions architect here at AWS. I work on sort of technical consulting with all of our services with a big weight on Gen AI.
Thanks, Ivo. So let's have a look at what we're covering today. I'm going to start off talking about what is Amazon Quick and just a quick overview of business intelligence and how Amazon Quick fits into that picture. I'll then hand over to Ivo to do the technical deep dive. So he'll take you through all of the features and capability of the platform. We'll then move into a quick demo, and I'll do a bit of a screen share, so it'll be live. So hopefully everything holds up, and I'll show you what the platform's capable of. And then at the end, we'll round off with a few key takeaways and have time for some questions. If you do think of anything as we're running through the content, please feel free to use the Q&A button. You'll find it either at the top of your Zoom console or at the bottom, depending on whether you're using the desktop app or the web application. Click on that and pop in a question, and I'll run through those at the end. If you can't find it or it doesn't work for you, feel free to use the chat and I'll take a look in there as well. So let's get started. I thought I'd start off by talking about what is business intelligence, just to sort of give a bit of background and serve as a baseline. So business intelligence essentially is a way of, across an organization, collecting data and more often than not centralizing that, so storing that in a data warehouse or some sort of centralized system, and then processing that data as well. So that might be changing the shape of the data, changing the structure, cleaning it up, maybe joining it with some other data and building out views and all sorts of things like that. So anything sort of like, ETL processes and stuff like that sort of sits within there. And then obviously, you want to do something with that data. It's not particularly valuable if it's sat there. So the other elements of business intelligence is then looking for trends and patterns in that data, and then gaining insights from that as well. And often that's done in a graphical way. So things like dashboards and analysis and reports often form parts of business intelligence systems. And this has been the sort of, I guess, state of this world for a long time now. Most people on this call will be familiar with it. You've probably used a business intelligence system in one way, shape, or another over the last 10, 20 years or so forth. I certainly have. So, but there's some problems with, I guess, traditional business intelligence. And so on my screen here, I have a chat example, and this is real world. So a month or two ago, we've got Paul. Paul is a real person. I hope he's not dialed in today. He might be a little bit upset me sort of sharing this story. But I was tasked with completing a survey and sort of putting together like a little presentation and so on. And to do that, I needed some data. Now, I have access to our Salesforce, but I don't use it every day. I'm not an expert at Salesforce. I know that the reports are in there. I know I can go and build a report, but I'm not sure where the data is. It would just take me probably all day to figure it out to get the data I need. Paul is our data expert. I can fire him a question or query, and he'll go off and pull out that, build a report or point me to a report that exists or export the data and send it across to me. So this is a real chat. A few months ago, I said to Paul, right, I need a report on 2025 revenue by region. Send it over to me when you get a chance. He's obviously got other stuff that he's working on. So, okay, I'll get that report over to you tomorrow. And the net result of that meant, I was waiting around for a day. He sent me over the data. I then had to cross-reference that with something else, and then sort of make sense of it, and then put those insights into the report and presentation that I was working on. So everybody's probably familiar with this process, right? You've probably been through this before. And for me, I think this summed up the sort of problem with traditional business intelligence. It's often very backward looking. So looking at data and analysis based on historical information that you have in the organization. So often the reports and so forth are not very, or information is not very forward looking. So one of the things I had to do then was generate like a kind of forward revenue forecast. And in the tooling, that wasn't possible, so I had to go off and do that myself. Often the reports are quite static, and the dashboards are so they're created to serve a purpose. They're created to answer a question, and they're not particularly dynamic. So a report for revenue by year might exist, but and maybe you can select a particular year, but it's often a bit clunky to try and if you've got a slightly different question or you want to do something for that data, you often have to export and then do something with it. Again, that centralization of data is particularly useful, but more often than not, it's not self-service. Most people in an organization won't have access to go into a business intelligence tool and edit reports that exist because you don't want everybody doing that. You want the system to be quite tidy and organized. So that often that means a level of control, and that means you can't often self-serve. And then sometimes a new question appears, right? You might want a particular insight in the business, and there's a question that hasn't been asked before, and so a report doesn't exist or dashboard, and that needs to go and get created. So that's the problem space really that we're in. So now if we have a look at Amazon Quick, Amazon Quick is essentially next generation business intelligence. So everything that you might expect, and Evo will dig into much more detail in the features, and we'll have a live demo so you get to see what's what in a minute. But everything you might see expect from a traditional business intelligence system like dashboards and analytics and reports and so forth are there. So it has that capability. If you've used Amazon QuickSight before, it'll feel familiar in that way. Amazon Quick is QuickSight evolved with some extra capability. So all the dashboards and analytics are there, but there's the addition of AI agents. And we'll have a little bit of a demo in a minute so you can see what they can do. But these AI agents can carry out things like build a report for you, or surface some information or some insights, or do a projection. You can also do workflow automation, so you can have agents, create reports for you, and sort of build insights on the fly and trigger those based on events as well. And there's also deep research capability too. So you can see in the image that I've got there, the screenshot, there's a research thing on the sidebar. You can kick off a research task, and I used this the other day. Actually, we had some information, and I wanted to enrich it, and do some research on some organizations. And what I was able to do was use an agent to take the data I had and go off and do a web search and some deep research, and then come back to me with a report with that data enriched, which was super handy. And all of this exists in a single workspace, so not having to go into a BI tool and download a report and then take that out and then stick that into, say, Claude Desktop to then get some insights from it. All of this can happen in a single workspace. So that will hopefully provide you all with some background and context. I'm now going to hand over to Evo, and he's going to take you through all of the features of QuickSight. So over to you, Evo.
Thank you, Mike. Let me just share my screen. Should be able to see that now.
Yeah, all good.
All right, amazing. So we all know that very often your work is scattered across dozens of tools and vendors. And the thing with Quick is that it connects to over 120 apps and brings it all together in one place. And you're going to hear this theme multiple times throughout this webinar. So now let's look at capabilities, but not just features, but what outcomes they drive for you. Let's start with the shared knowledge foundation. This means that you have one place for your team's collective knowledge that is always current. You no longer need to update data sources manually. They stay up to date. We also have autonomous AI agents, helping you delegate real work that runs continuously on your behalf and not just providing answers when you ask. Mike also mentioned deep research, but I do have to say it again, helping you synthesize all of the information across your sources in minutes rather than days. What used to be a project before is now just a simple task that you can do yourself. In terms of the business intelligence, now you can ask questions in natural language across every data source that your business runs on. You're no longer limited by the number of dashboards that you have and the data sources that you've pulled through that. We also have simple automations. That would mean eliminating repetitive steps with workflows that are no code. You don't need to write any code. But then with the simple automations, how we can cascade them through, we could get full orchestration. So training the complex multi-step processes that are most importantly end-to-end. Then, if by now we were talking mostly about your work, let's talk about your team's work. With published apps, you can go from an idea to a live web application in just a single conversation that you can share with your colleagues. And last but not least, we're talking about deliverables. Produce polished documents, presentations, and reports instantly. So how does a day with Quick look like in practice? Imagine in the morning, your day starts in the activity feed. While you are away, the activity feed pulls through together your email, Slack, calendar, and anything else that you need into a one prioritized view. You open your laptop to flag priorities, pre-drafted follow-ups, and a briefing on your first meeting, and that's ready before you've had your first coffee. Also, it's all in one place. You no longer need to have an hour for email, half an hour for Slack, and go through all of these disparate data sources and connect the strings yourself. By midday, let's say that you ask Quick for a quarterly dashboard. It builds it in just a single conversation and pulls live sales and finance data across multiple sources. You don't need to raise an analyst ticket, and you don't need to wait for that analyst ticket to get picked up and executed on. As a result, you share an interactive dashboard with your team in minutes. Now, in the afternoon, you are able to turn a one-off request into a reusable application. A teammate, say, needs a way to submit and track requests. You can just describe that into Quick, and it builds the working app in the conversation, and then you can publish that application so that anyone can use it without any specific logins required. And then at the end of the day, you just log off, but your agents don't. Overnight, they keep on working. They monitor for stuff like regulatory change that you want to track. If there are any stalled deals, they can follow up on these, and drafting the impact summary, waiting in your feed for the next day in the morning. Now, let's look at how Quick helps your team get answers from your data fast. Teams build agents that could be trained on their specific data and workflows. And one person builds it, but the whole team benefits once that's shared. Just describe what you need in plain language or choose from a pre-configured library that we built for you. The agents answer questions, but can also take actions and work autonomously on your behalf. They can learn from corrections, and outcomes, and they're getting sharper over time. They're grounded in your data, and they're also governed by your controls. Mission control is critical, and it gives you full observability. You can monitor all of the agent activity, take control of ongoing runs, and filter across executions, all from a single centralized hub. With all of that, you get the full spectrum from a shared knowledge agent that your team queries to an autonomous agent that monitors, acts, and reports back continuously without waiting for you to ask the question. Spaces are the way that you can bring files, dashboards, data sources, and agents into a single collaborative workspace. That means that one person's insight becomes the whole team's advantage and scales quickly. New team members can get up to speed in hours and not weeks. And agency partners get the context that they need without back and forth. Oh, someone's on holiday. They need to come back to answer you. You don't need to wait for that anymore. And all of that means that knowledge compounds across people and projects and not just individual conversations. And you have built-in access controls for every workspace so that you make sure that people have visibility only in the data and insights that they need. Quick Research combines internal knowledge and live web data into expert level reports in minutes. It can synthesize internal docs, databases, third-party data, and real-time web search into a structured, exportable documentation. Now, what used to take days of manual synthesis happens in minutes, and it is grounded in your business context while being current to new developments. Now, Quick also provides the AI-assisted business intelligence that connects to your existing data catalogs and queries across multiple sources in real time, letting anyone explore, decide, and act all in one place. As you can expect, you can ask questions in natural language, but you can do those across, say, Databricks, Redshift, Snowflake, and more. You can get the interactive dashboards instantly without doing any manual joins, no analyst tickets, no experience required. All of that means that you ask one question over every data source. There is no separate BI tool, there are no extra licenses needed, and no context switching. And your existing access controls are enforced automatically throughout, so you don't have to set up that yourself. Now, if for now, Quick was giving us the information, let's see how it can also act on your behalf. Quick Flows connects to your tools and automates routine tasks with no code required. And this means that effectively, you reclaim hours every week. With the pre-built templates and 40+ integrations, alongside triggers based on events, schedules, or conditions, you have the flexibility that you need, while also having pre-built assets that can ease your way through. Any team member can now automate their busy work without any engineering support required. Quick also brings you complex workflows that are fully managed. With Quick Automate, you can orchestrate cross-system processes with business logic and full oversight. You also have multi-step workflows, conditional branching, monitoring, and adjustment of live automation. So you can make sure that you have end-to-end orchestration that's complex and not just including simple triggers. Now, we've seen Quick delivers answers, can act on your behalf, but it's important that it also delivers measurable results, not just productivity tricks. With Quick Apps, you have custom tools that are built into the conversation. It turns natural language into working applications. What might those be? Could be intake forms, dashboards, trackers, calculators, and anything that you can think of. You just describe what you need, and Quick builds it. Then you can publish it to any audience that you decide, no specific login required, or you can share internally with your team, making sure that the iterations are reflected in real time across everyone who accesses it. You can go from an idea to a live application in just a single conversation. There is no code required, no IT involved, and no waiting for all of these things. And now you can share it with anyone, be it inside the organization or outside. You can now create it in Quick, but also deliver it in Microsoft 365. You can generate presentations, documents, spreadsheets, and images in the conversation, and then you can push them where your team actually needs to see them. You can find them in chat or even edit inline until it's right. Then push it directly into Outlook, Teams, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. All that means that you can go from insight to a deliverable and directly to the inbox, all in a single conversation in one page. Now, the activity feed consolidates everything that you're doing into a single prioritized view. It learns your patterns and adapts. What you answer fast, what you skip doesn't matter to you, and what really drives your week. In practice, this means that you can get 6 escalation emails that become just one summary card with already pre-drafted responses. Meeting preparation materializes before you even open the invite, and VP messages get flagged before you've even had the chance to read them. All of this means that your first hour becomes productive and not just triage, looking at the email, looking at Slack, looking at all of these other things. And now you can even tune it. You can say, for example, I don't need the marketing updates. Please prioritize production incidents, and the model adapts. Now, the other thing is that with all of those capabilities, Quick meets your team wherever you're working. You have the same AI assistant across basically every device. You have your browser, your desktop, and your mobile. That means that your AI assistant is available wherever you work, be it you're in the office or you're running late for a customer meeting and on the tube, you need to fire up some automations. You can do all of that in Quick. Now, we know that with most AI tools, security is something that you think sort of afterwards and you bolt it on. But with Quick, this is actually the starting point. Quick runs on the same AWS infrastructure that you already trust for your most sensitive workloads. So there's nothing new to that, basically. Data is being encrypted everywhere, both when it's moving around and also when it's stored. And it can also be isolated in your own private network space. And then the line that I know matters to all of you. The data is yours. It's not used to train any underlying models. Then it's also important to control who sees what. And role-based access controls is what we've traditionally been using. It means that just the people can see only what they're allowed to see. Quick plugs into the identity tools that you already use, like Active Directory, single sign-on, so that access follows existing rules automatically. And then, just in case, every action is logged through CloudTrail, so your security team has a full audit trail and nothing happens in the dark. Now, you might ask me, so is it compliant? And the answer is yes across all of the ones that you can see on the screen. We've got HIPAA, we've got FedRAMP, PCI DSS, SOC, and ISO as well. You don't need to memorize all of this, but basically, Quick is covered by the same third-party audited AWS compliance programs that you already rely on. And you can pull all of these reports yourselves through AWS Artifact. And now I think that's plenty of talking. I think it's time, Mike. Let's get on to the demo.
Thanks, Evo. Yeah. So I'm just going to pull up the demo here. If any of you dialed in are like me, I like to get hands on with something and stuck in. So we're gonna do a bit of that now. Yeah. So whilst I've got Amazon Quick up on the screen, but just to sort of pull everything together and touch on something Evo said, this is in AWS. So Amazon Quick is comparable to Copilot or Gemini, and Copilot sits within the Microsoft ecosystem. Gemini sits within the Google ecosystem, but AWS is ecosystem agnostic. It can connect to either, but if you've got databases and systems and applications in AWS, Amazon Quick is there. And I'll show you in a minute how you can easily connect your data sources. So I'm logged into Amazon Quick. This is the dashboard. I've got my little AI assistant here saying, "Hey Mike, what should we do today?" And we'll come back to this in a second, but I'll show you what we have set up. This is relatively simple, but it'll give you an idea of what's possible. So first thing I'm going to do is show you what data we've got connected. Now, I've basically uploaded some data to this, some CSVs. This is dummy data, so it's not going to give you like revenue and sort of headcount of Scale Factory. I've generated this data and I've loaded it up, but it's to sort of simulate databases and other systems. If I click on Create Data Set here, and we go to data source, it'll give you an idea of what you can connect Quick to out of the box. You can, if a data set is not listed here, you can connect to it by doing an ETL process and say loading that data into S3 or Redshift or something like that. But I'll just call out a few of the interesting ones here. So Redshift and S3, like I mentioned, you could have an ETL from any system, drop data there. You could upload data into something like a data lake or data warehouse, and you can connect that to Quick. You can connect it directly to your Aurora RDS databases. Let's say you're a SaaS platform, you've got a SaaS application, you could get insights into the data there. You can connect it to Databricks. You've got GitHub, Jira, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and so on. So there's lots of native connectors in there. You've even got like Google BigQuery and Google Sheets as well. So you can connect your data sources and give quick access to data to make use of that. And then the other thing that's worth looking at is knowledge. So if we have a look at this, you can see here we can create knowledge bases. So if you're using Bedrock and you've got a knowledge base attached to that, you can make that available, and then the chat agents will have access to that knowledge base too. You could connect it to your Google Drive. So you might have some documents in a repository in Google Drive. You can make that available to Quick. Maybe OneDrive, maybe SharePoint, or Confluence there. So those are some knowledge bases. You even have a web crawler here. So if I open this up, you can give it some authentication and maybe connect it to, let's say you've got a corporate intranet that has a login. You could go and crawl that. So that's pretty handy. Um, and then if we have a look at connectors, you'll see the same things pop up again like Google Drive. But to give you an idea here of what you can do, you could have a workflow or an automation, maybe generate some insights from Salesforce, and then write a summary to a Google Sheet every month, or maybe generate a presentation and then drop that into Google Drive, or Gmail. So maybe read your emails in your inbox and pull some insights out of that. And yeah, or Zoom. Maybe schedule a meeting. Maybe take some Zoom recordings. So you might have a workflow. So there's all sorts of really cool things you can do here. We're quite heavy users of Slack. So Slack, maybe I've generated a report. It's going to post a message into Slack to say, the latest, this month's report is ready to view. Let's go and have a look at chat agents now. So out of the box, you get a default agent, Quick, and then you can create your own chat agent. Evo talked about there's some off-the-shelf ones as well. So there's some templates here. So you can use one of these template agents. You can modify that. You can create a blank agent if I click on that. Again, natural language, so I don't have to write code or anything. I can just describe what the agent should do and influence what knowledge it might use. You can set the data sets that agents are able to access. Um, and then if we have a look at something sort of, I guess, traditional business intelligence and a dashboard or analysis, let's have a look here. So if we go into this, I've created a blank one ready to go. So I've got some simulated revenue data here, and I'd like to build a visual. And you can either, add some widgets and create some graphs, but you can also use the chat agent to build it for you. So let's try this out now. So build me a bar chart showing 2025 revenue by region, and let's hit build, and hopefully this works. It's always the danger of doing live demos here. There we go. So it's built me a bar chart. I should probably double check the data, but I will do that later. Add to my analysis here, and then I can publish this and turn this into a dashboard. So revenue dashboard. And away we go. So there we go. I've got a dashboard, super quick and easy. I don't have to fiddle around with widgets and so forth. So that just shows you an example there. And then the other thing I talked about was research. You can use this capability here to do things like I talked about, like enrich data. Again, natural language here, so you can describe what you're trying to do. I won't. This can take quite a long time because it will like web search and go and find information. But I'll describe the example I used. I uploaded a CSV of data, and then I asked it to search the web and enrich it with information, and then it came back, and it took like 10 minutes and then and sent me back a report. So that's super handy. The other thing that we have here is flows. You these are kind of workflows. So let's say you've got a workflow in your organization that uh, I don't know, you've got a process where you respond to RFPs. This is one that's pre-built in Quick, but you could have your workflow here in built in Quick. So people who are responding to an RFP can follow the process in Quick. Here we have, upload your documents, and then it will sort of walk them step by step through your process. So you can codify that in your organization. And again, because Quick has access to all of your company and organizational data, you can make use of that in these flows. So people responding to RFPs will have access to the data repositories. Something different from flows is automations, and this is where some of the AI stuff comes into play. So I don't have a pre-built automation here, but we can have a look at it. So so again, natural language. You can skip this. I can hit skip, and there's a kind of visual workflow which I'll show you in a minute. But we could do something here like, I don't know, generate me a revenue report every month, and then hit generate, and that'll go off and sort of start building me a workflow here. If I did the skip, you get a view like what I have on the right hand side here. But the automation assistant is now going away and sort of trying to figure this out for me. And so here we go. It's coming up with a plan on how to sort of build this automation. And then if it's not quite right, obviously I can edit it and I can tweak it and make sure it's using the right data sources. So that's working away. Um, Maybe we'll come back to that. So that's working in the background. So whilst that does that, we'll move on to something else. Another thing that I think is super useful is spaces. So you can create a space, and if I go into this here, um, you can share it and you can add a group. So this one I've created as an example is called Sales Team. I could share it with a group of sales reps. And within this space, I can add some dashboards that I've created, some knowledge bases, and some data sets that they can access. And then that team can go into this space. It might be the only thing that they have access to. And then they can see the reports that are relevant for their team. And they can access the data and knowledge bases that are relevant to them as well. So you can have a kind of like team workspace or problem workspace. Um, I'm going to quickly have a look at the automation. Aha, okay, no, it's still planning. Um, yeah, it's still planning away. That might take a little while. Let's right at the start. I showed you the problem of I needed some data from Salesforce, and I had to go ask Paul, and it took him some time to pull out that report. So if I was to do the same thing in Quick, I've got my data here loaded, but in the real world, I would have it directly connected to Salesforce. And instead of going into Salesforce and sort of building a report or pulling out a report, I could use Quick instead. I could also cross-reference it with other data that Quick has available, and I think that's where the real power comes from. So let's start. Let's do generate me a 2025 revenue by region report and hit go. One thing that's worth calling out here is it's using the Quick agent by default. If I've created other agents, I could use those, and those agents obviously I can ground them with some context and some knowledge. But I'm just using the default one here. The other thing that I can do is I can point it at a space or I can point it at some data. If I don't and I use all data, you'll see in a moment the agent will try and figure out where that data is. And then the other thing that I can do is I've said generate a report here is quite generic. I could select spreadsheet, presentation, document, or I could ask it in natural language and it'll go do that. So if I specifically wanted to say build a presentation of 25 revenue data, I could click that and it would build it in a PowerPoint and I could download that and then take it from there. So here we go. Generate me a 2025 revenue report by region, and it's thinking, it's thinking how to do it. um, so whilst that is working away, here we go. So it's now looking through data assets, and if I expand this, you can see here it's there we go. So it's found the data set. Um, It's found the data set, and you can see here it's generated some SQL. It's now running a query, and if you look here, you can sort of expand it out, and you can see what it's doing, which is quite useful for debugging. Um, so it shouldn't take too long. As you can imagine, I have tested this once or twice before showing you all today. Um, Here we go. Okay, so now it's producing me a summary. Um, so it's pulled out this report, and you can see here it's generated those insights. So it's given me the data that I was looking for. I can download in CSV, so I can take this and I can go do something with it. I can add it to a space. I can pin it, so I could pin it to the say the sales team workspace. It's built me a chart. I can export that. I can do stuff with it, and then it's asking me what I'd like to do next. So Again, when I mentioned I asked Paul for that data, he sent it to me, and then I was going to another system to get some other data to cross-reference it. Here I could then do something else with this data. I can also in the question here. So maybe I don't know. The thing that I wanted to do was, let's say, forecast a 20% uplift in APAC revenue, something like that, right? What would if we made more sales in that region, what would it look like? Um, and it's going to come up with a plan and run the same thing again. I won't bore you with that. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what you can do in the platform. If you're AWS users today, then this service is available in the AWS console, so you can load up the Amazon Quick service and configure workspace and then start using it. So there we go. So now it's calculated what that uplift looks like. So a bit like say using ChatGPT, right? I've got this interactive chat mode, and I can go back and forth with the agent and sort of query over my data. I think that's enough live demo for today. Let's go back to some slides and wrap up. Okay, cool. Right. So just to sort of round off in summary, really, this is what the next generation or the latest generation of business intelligence looks like. Um, Self-service. So although as I mentioned before, I have access to Salesforce, I can go in, log in. I can maybe find the data that I'm looking for. I don't use it all of the time. I don't know where to go find that. I have a single interface, one workspace, sat across all of my data. I can ask the chat agent. I could even ask and say, I'm looking for this data. Where is it? And it'll search and try and find where that data is for me if it has access to it. Again, it's all done through natural language, so I'm writing in plain English, and the agent is if it's going to query a data set, it will generate that SQL, so I don't have to worry about doing that. And then I could turn the output into a view, and then use that later or embed that in a report. Again, I can build dashboards and analysis with plain English as well. Um, You've seen the AI assistant. You can build other chatbots. You can ground them in different context. You can attach them to knowledge bases. You can give them a persona, which is super useful. And then you've got the autonomous agents and workflows. So although that process was sort of kicking off in the background and sort of building that out, what it would have done is built a workflow for generating that report, and then I could have attached to it a step of when the report's generated, post it into Slack, send an email, create a presentation version and stick it into Google Drive. So super, super handy there. One thing that I will say that's super, super important here is obviously you could deploy quick, you could connect it to all your data sets. I could connect it to Salesforce very quickly and I could start using it, but it's only as good as the data that you give it. So if the data in, say, Salesforce is not structured correctly, or is not annotated, or doesn't have the right enough information, then I'm not going to get a huge amount out of it. So data strategy and data quality becomes super, super important in systems like this. And if you connect it to a load of garbage, you're just going to get garbage out. So make sure the data is structured in a way that is accessible, that you trust the data as well, that it's accurate, and obviously think carefully about things like PII and whatnot, which is where Evo talked about governance and access controls and so on, making sure that that's in place, and then making sure that you can access it as well. It's accessible. So those things are super, super key. Um, few key takeaways from today. So kill the bottleneck. By that, I don't mean if you've got a pool in your organization, don't hire a hitman or something. But shift towards self-service. If you're finding yourself having to go to somebody who is the gatekeeper for that data, well, it's often not intentional. They're just the person that knows where to find it. Um, Self-service is the future. It means, in our organization, Paul gets his life back, and it means, as our person looking after our data, he can focus more on data quality and making sure that the information in Salesforce is correct and accurate, the information in our finance systems is correct and accurate, so that we're getting the best out of it rather than being inundated and interrupted with people like me saying, "Can you pull out a quick report on this? Thank you very much." Um, the the other thing with like traditional business intelligence systems, obviously these reports and dashboards are quite static, and so you're shifting from these dashboards and these charts into having essentially a colleague. That little chat that I showed you is like an AI assistant. I can ask it to find data for me. I can ask it to build a dashboard, and it'll go away and do that work for me. I can build a workflow and I can have agents do the kind of routine tasks that I would ordinarily do. And then the last thing, which I just touched on the last slide, but I'm going to say it twice because it's super important, is data quality and data strategy become key here. Can't really take any shortcuts. And if you're connecting these data sets to the system and they're not great, then you're not going to get the full experience out of the agents and the platform. Um, so we're almost at the end here. So just before we jump into questions, if you are thinking about using Amazon Quick or using agents to do anything like this, um, as I think most of you, a lot of you on this call are aware of Scale Factory, but we're AWS consulting partners, and we work with folk like Evo to help get implementations of Quick and Bedrock off the ground. And along, the full journey, along the full AI lifecycle, going from you don't have any AI in your organization, you have no idea where to get started to you've got some POCs, maybe you set up quick and you've got it connected to some data sets, but you're finding some barriers. Maybe your data isn't, in the right shape or good quality. There is AWS funding to support, any kind of stage there really. I won't go into too much detail of what that looks like because, as always, it depends. But pull out three main steps here. So we've got AI assessment program. If you're thinking about doing something with AI and AWS, we'll sit down with you and figure out those use cases, identify those, work out which ones have the highest return on investment, help you build a business case, putting together like a gap mitigation plan. So maybe your data does need a little bit of work, that data warehouse project you've been sat on for a couple of years. Maybe it's time to get around to it. We'll help you sort of figure that out. And then moving into an AI POC, so getting something off the ground where you've got it working with a data set, you can demonstrate the value, and then through to taking it to production and scaling it out. So if you're interested in any of that, drop us a line. I think we'll follow up with more information after this about that. So do reach out to us. So now it's time for questions. So let's see what we have. I'm just going to pull up some questions. Okay, so Evo, I've got a couple of questions for you. Um, Related a bit to what I was just talking about at the end there. So, do you have any recommendations about preparing data before connecting it to Quick?
Yeah. So, we always say that data could be its own conversation, and also it's the fact that it's never going to be perfect. It's a living creature in all organizations, so it changes all of the time, in its content, in its structure as well. What we need to get to very often is a place where, if before those systems was just filled with information, that's sort of raw data. That's going to be very inefficient for a model to digest. And it's inefficient from an accuracy point of view and from a cost point of view as well. So very, very, very often in these cases, it turns out that a simple sort of batch job, data processing job, would help and go a long way, even though it might be a little bit of an upfront cost. But in the long term, it does significantly help out, drive, as I mentioned, both your accuracy and costs up. So that's something that I always ask customers when we get into a conversation. It's like, how does your data look like? Another thing that I've seen is just being conscious of how your data looks like. In a lot of organizations, we have different teams that have been given the freedom to create their own data sets, create their own silos. But the thing is that if Mike needs to look at data from a different department, then this could introduce, even with AI, could introduce some again, inefficiencies in the processing and the costs. So I would say starting with your AI journey, the first step is always having a good idea about your data footprint. Where does the data sit? So that you can make sure that first any inefficiencies are eliminated. If we can join data somewhere or something like that, or that the data that's context specific is enriched. Now, this might seem quite daunting, but AI can help with those as well. It's not too much about the execution. The execution is usually easy and relatively quick. It's more about having sort of being mindful of all of these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's yeah, I think that's quite a good point. I think one of the things that we often do when we look at a use case as well is see what data that use case needs and then factor that into the effort and then the ROI. And it can seem quite daunting, can't it? A large organization has a lot of data, and you think, oh my gosh, how are we going to get all of this data in the right order? But for an initial project or initial use case, you might only need two or three data sets, and so the focus can just be there, and then starting to kind of improve on that, and then iterate. Cool. Okay. So another question here, sort of data related, but moving into the security conversation, I guess, security and governance. So I mean, I had a really simple demo. I didn't show any of this side of it really. But let's say I keep coming back to Salesforce as an example, just because that query I had myself. But we connected to Salesforce. We have this data available. Users are logged in. Well, I don't know, we might have like 100 users in Quick making use of it, and we don't necessarily want to give everyone access to everything. So you talked about role-based access control, but maybe we can sort of touch on that a little bit and sort of paint a bit of color on what that looks like if we've got lots of data sets in the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you have a lot of data sets in, and it's at this point, I would assume that you have already a good knowledge of your data footprint, what you have, and then some mapping in terms of who needs access to what. Then this is the foundation on which you build on, right? Yes, Quick has functionalities that help you directly, I guess, get the permissions that you've set up before to just transfer to Quick, such as with Active Directory, your single sign-on for apps. You can use the same methodology in Quick. But also keep in mind that Quick is based on, as an AWS service, is also based on the very familiar IAM roles.
Mm.
If you have anything else in AWS, you would know what I'm talking about. But basically, being able to define roles, being able to define users, being able to bunch them up into teams, so that you make sure that you keep a tight balance between, on one hand, having to give individual permission to individual people, but also at the same time not having everyone all of the permissions. So it's somewhere in the middle, depends on the organization and what your needs are, what your security requirements are, but it's usually in between those two, never in one
Mm.
or the other, that you create team-based access, obviously
Yeah.
adhering to the least privilege access controls as well, so that everyone has access to data that only the data that they need, nothing more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess like create a team for say sales team, and then give them access to Salesforce, and then other teams that need access to that, and that way you can have lots of data sets in quick, but not give everyone access to everything with that. Um, cool. Okay. No, that's super useful. No, thanks, Ivo, for answering those questions and contributing today and talking about Quick. And that's all we have time for. We'll follow up with a recording of this and some other resources. And as I mentioned, if you're thinking about doing anything like this, do reach out to us and we can give you some guidance and see speak with AWS and see what co-investment they will provide to your project as well. Thanks all. Bye.